Ellison Barber in for Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. We begin with the latest in southern Gaza, where conditions seem to be getting worse and worse by the minute. According to the World Health Organization, infectious diseases are setting off a public health crisis in the enclave and appearing to make the entire humanitarian crisis all the worse. It is becoming increasingly difficult to get supplies into Khan Yunis. That's Gaza's largest city in southern Gaza. But Israel says it will open the Karim Shalom crossing tomorrow, a decision they say will double the amount of aid being sent into Gaza. Right now, most of the aid is coming in from the crossing on Egypt's border, the Rafah crossing. While this might significantly improve the aid situation there, Gaza's Ministry of Health says there are still hundreds of displaced Palestinians sleeping on hospital floors where wounded people were also being treated. A Qatari field hospital is being prepared in Rafah to help with the deteriorating medical situation throughout the Strip. Another problem is that humanitarian zones, they are shrinking as more and more people are being pushed south. Nearly 2 million people have been displaced inside of Gaza since the start of this war.
We are in the winter, so imagine we are running away just from a place to another place. We don't have anything. We don't have medicine. We search for the medicine. Big old people, children with no shelters.
The ongoing war is drawing strong reactions in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, where today stores, businesses, and schools closed in support of Palestinians in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel released the names of 20 hostages today, all of whom they believe are dead. Israel says they are among the more than 100 people who remain captive by Hamas, their bodies, they say, remaining in Gaza. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis is a senior fellow at Defense Priorities and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube, and he joins us now. Thank you for being with us today. Let's just sort of start with some of the headlines we've seen today coming out of Israel. The defense minister there saying today that Israel does not plan to permanently stay inside of Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's also expressed this in the past, but not giving a timeline on how long Israel might remain in that area. Let's take a listen and I'll talk a little bit more about the implications of this.
Israel will take any measures in order to destroy Hamas, but we have no intention to stay permanently in Gaza Strip.
We don't seek to govern Gaza. We don't seek to occupy it, but we seek to give it and us a better future in the entire Middle East. And that requires defeating Hamas. I've set goals. I didn't set a timetable because, it can take more time.
This lack of a timetable has raised some eyebrows where some people look at the situation and they say, okay, you think back to 2005. That is when Israel had military forces inside of Gaza. There were also Israeli settlers inside of Gaza. The prime minister at the time, Sharon, decided to pull everyone out. And they, in Israel's view, completely left the Gaza Strip, though Palestinians would say you never really left. You created a border and surrounded us in what they describe now as an open air prison. So what is the message here for the plan moving forward? Why is it that Israeli officials seem so hesitant to give any sort of clear timetable for what things might look like if they are successful in their primary goal of ridding the Gaza Strip of Hamas?
Well, yeah, I think that the message certainly is being received by the Palestinian side is that there is no promise of any kind of self-governance. I mean, I don't think that there's a two-state solution, which President Biden publicly says he supports, is even on the table, because I can only imagine that it would have to be many years before Israel would even come close to saying, yes, we're going to have, we're going to leave and we're not going to occupy the Gaza Strip, because Netanyahu also previously, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, said Hamas will never be able to govern under any form or any circumstances, and the Palestinian Authority will not be allowed to come in either, meaning that some political entity that currently doesn't even exist will have to be formed, and that raises a whole new level of questions about, and who's going to get to decide what they have? Will Israel just let the people choose for themselves? Will they dictate something? Would the Palestinians follow something if it was appointed by Israel? All of these talk about a long-term problem here, and there's no time schedule, which means they can't be held to any standards.
When you look at the relationship between the United States and Israel, President Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, there's been a lot of reporting and a lot of talk about discussions that the U.S. president may be having behind the scenes with Netanyahu and trying to press him to behave in a certain way, while very publicly still making it clear that the United States supports Israel in terms of diplomacy as well as just their military operations here. But I'm curious, what would the implications be for the relationship between the United States and Israel if Israeli forces do not leave Gaza when this is over, when the U.S. still so publicly says they do support a two-state solution?
Well, I mean, that's really going to come down to leadership in the White House, frankly, because we keep saying all those words publicly that, yes, we believe in a two-state solution. We want to the rights of the Palestinian people to have their own future and their own hope. And we understand also simultaneously that Israel deserves to defend itself because of the terrorist attack on 10/7. All those things are true. But if they're not followed with actions, then it starts to be a problem for the United States, just to be honest. Because if Israel says we're going to be careful with the civilian casualties, and the U.S. says you have to be much more careful in the southern half now than into Khan Yunis. But if the actions don't follow, if Israel isn't more careful and the casualties continue to spike, then our credibility comes on the line, because then it looks like we have no say and that we'll just keep giving Israel what they want. And that undercuts our ability to hold other people accountable anywhere else in the world if we can't even have our ally do what we say. And that's going to be a problem for the United States going forward, and something that the president has to address.
Very quickly, Lieutenant Colonel, do you think that has already become a problem for the United States?
Well, it has already, and our, continuing to protect Israel in the UN Security Council, where we said we vetoed that ceasefire nomination. That got from even our allies. France even was really upset publicly about that. And certainly those in the Middle East and the other Arab allies of the United States are very unhappy with that. And that's, again, eroding our credibility and our ability to influence things, even for our own outcomes. And it's not moving in a good direction, I got to say.
All right, retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you.
Massive cleanups are underway in the South after tornadoes ripped through communities there this weekend. Tornadoes killed 6 people in Tennessee, including a child, left dozens more seriously injured. The scenes, they are devastating. Houses leveled, roofs ripped off, mobile homes flipped on top of one another, and cars flung across streets. Families are mourning the loss of loved ones and neighbors as they try to pick up the pieces of their lives that have been left behind. Here's some of what that looked like both during and after the storms.
We just got hit with a tornado. I saw it last minute. Oh my gosh, everything's gone.
I was trying to go in the closet when I got that alert. I just remember opening the closet door and just turning around. The wind just took me, and I just remember waking up on this side of my house. You don't want to imagine. I mean, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It's kind of horrible. But I'm just glad we were able to walk away from it, because looking at this here, you would be like, how did y'all get out of it?
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. It's very, very heartbreaking.
He was 31 years old. We got a 10-year-old boy. And that's another reason I didn't sleep last night, too. So it's not, I'm thankful that we're all alive, but what hurts me more than anything is he lost his life last night. That's what hurts more than anything. It's not that all this material stuff can be replaced, but my friend can.
And tonight, Tennessee is still under a state of emergency with 20,000 people without power. NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander has more.
Well, here in Clarksville, just an hour outside of Nashville, officials say that both here and all across the storm's path, there are so many structures that look like this one, either barely standing or needing to be demolished. In fact, hundreds were impacted, either from minor damage all the way to being totally destroyed. This home, though, really tells kind of the story of what we have seen across the region. When you look, yes, you see devastation like this. There are homes just next door that don't even exist anymore, knocked off the foundation. While across the street, you see some that are barely barely even touched. It really just speaks to the unpredictable nature of this storm. And while you see scenes like this on a grand scale, you also see small details like this, small belongings that have been pulled out of the house, like a children's toy. I was even here when a woman's high school artwork was pulled out. She found a suitcase, different things like that people are really going through the rubble and trying to salvage in the aftermath of this storm. Now, certainly, as we're seeing scenes like this, we're also hearing the stories, the escape stories. I spoke with one gentleman on the street who was inside. He was outside while his 3 children were inside watching TV. He decided rather than riding it out inside, he would put them in a car and outrun the storm. Miraculously, they made it, but unfortunately, there were 6 deaths across the storm zone and dozens more were taken to the hospital. Now, of course, the recovery is just getting underway. We've seen volunteers behind us, people who have been coming and going through the wreckage, trying to help people start the long process of rebuilding. And then another thing on top of that, power, electricity. There are still thousands in the area without electricity tonight, all as temperatures are set to dip into the 20s. So certainly a race against the clock as people start the recovery effort in Tennessee. Back to you.
NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander, thank you. It's not just the South getting slammed by storms. The same storm that wreaked havoc in Tennessee, it also brought heavy rain and wind to the Northeast this weekend. Areas like New York and Connecticut saw almost 4 inches of rain, some of it still coming down today. The bad weather leaving travelers out of luck with thousands of flights either delayed or canceled. Fortunately, most of the weather alerts that were in place earlier for the Northeast have now been cleared. NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns is here to tell us more about what we can expect moving forward. Good evening, Bill.
Well, good evening to you, Allison. And what a storm and what a tragedy it was with all the tornadoes. 32 in all, of course, the 6 fatalities. And just the worst thing about tornadoes is that 1 hour, the house, the community is fine. Then the storm comes through and, it's going to take months and in some cases maybe years to be the same. So let's kind of sum up where we are with tornado season. We actually haven't had many tornadoes recently, but on the year, the average tornado count year to date is about 1368. We're a little bit above that, but nothing extraordinary. It's been a very average tornado year. And as far as tornado deaths go, now because of these 6, we're up to 82 this year. That's about 4 times as many as last year. But that's almost a little misleading because the 2 years before that were actually pretty high and above average. Normally, every year we average roughly about 71 fatalities. But going back 2017, 2018, 2019, the numbers were really low. So again, if you average this all out, it's kind of similar to what we have this year. So really nothing that we could say because of climate change or anything else. It's just been a very typical average tornado season. But of course, we'd all love it to be below average and not have to deal with what our friends in Tennessee are going through right now. So where do we go from here? The storm is gone. We're going to see warm temperatures, and that's going to be the theme maybe through the new year. I mean, there's no end in sight to this warmth. Little Rock, 60 tomorrow. Nashville, 57. Then as we head towards the middle and end of the week, we get up near 50 in Cleveland. Chicago, mid-40s, middle of December. No problem there, right? New York's going to be about 50 by Friday. And as far as rainfall goes, this is over the next 7 days. The only storm we have to talk about is one that's going to dive down through Texas, mostly rain. There'll be a little bit of snow on the north side of it. And then the storm will be in the Gulf. By the time we get towards the weekend, it goes through Florida, and then it may try to come up the coast on Monday. You get excited, snow lovers. You're like, oh, a storm coming up the coast in December? Often that can be like a big snowstorm. Too warm, unfortunately, for anyone that loves snow. This is the 7-day snow forecast, and it's paltry. There's not much to talk about. And it's going to stay warm, too. This is the 8 to 14-day forecast. This is the week before Christmas. Bright red means it's going to be warmer than normal. In some cases, maybe even near record high, especially in the northern plains. Only Florida is going to have normal temperatures, no cold air in sight. And it's going to be fairly dry heading up towards Christmas week, too. So this is great for travel, but horrendous if you're anyone that did want to get into any snow or a white Christmas. Because if you don't have snow on the ground now, Ellison, odds are you're not getting it. It's only going to melt from here on out. But maybe we'll have to wait till after the new year for winter to kick in.
Bill Cairns, thank you. Breaking news right now, SpaceX has scrubbed the launch of a U.S. military space plane into high orbit. The X-37B space plane was due to take off tonight from NASA's Kennedy Space Center for its 7th and final mission. In a post moments ago, SpaceX said it would try again tomorrow at the earliest. When it does the launch, the space plane will be riding the powerful Falcon Heavy rocket. The booster rocket could allow it to launch higher into orbit than ever before. The Pentagon is not revealing the exact altitude, but the Air Force has hinted that the mission will involve, quote, new orbital regimes and expand what we know about the future of the space domain. With me on set is Dr. Savik Ford, a professor of astronomy at the City University of New York. Also here to talk to us is retired NASA astronaut and International Space Station Commander Leroy Chiao. Welcome to both of you. Dr. Ford, let's start with you. No launch tonight, which is disappointing, but maybe not expected it happens. Let's focus on big picture. How big of a deal is it that this will happen? I believe this is the 9th time we've seen this particular SpaceX Heavy Falcon go into space. 3rd time it's carried some sort of government payload. Why should people care?
Well, I think that SpaceX has really revolutionized the frequency with which we can carry out launches, and it's therefore brought the price down as well through its reusable rocket technology, and it's really the leader in this area. And so, in fact, it's really exciting that we can turn around 7 missions in such a short span of time. And I think that that's sort of the big takeaway in terms of being able to launch very routinely and just having it be a thing that we do, as opposed to something that we're, all holding our breaths for.
How does that change for people who are saying, okay, well, maybe I understand in a space race setting or geopolitics or political or even tourism to space. I get why people are fascinated here. But from your profession and focusing so much on space, astronomy, just everything that exists, what does that mean for society moving forward when we have easier access to understanding the universe and spaces in our area, but way far away?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think astronomers are really, which I am one, we're really here to answer one of 2 questions. All of our research is trying to answer the question, how did we get here, or are we alone? And so it's really a curiosity-driven science. And if you don't care about the answers to those questions, then I guess I probably can't make you care about it. But I think that most people that I've met in the world do care about the answers to those questions. And so it makes it cheaper for us to explore and to learn new things, and it enables us to do these things faster and better. So that's the big attraction.
Okay, Leroy, let's bring you in here because you have been on board the International Space Station for months at a time. With these new orbitable possibilities, how could these sorts of advancement really change space operations for the future?
Well, sure. For the X-37B, it apparently is going to launch into a higher orbit than it has otherwise. And so it's a whole different environment up there, higher levels of radiation, different kind of viewing angles, things like that. So its mission, of course, is classified, so we don't know exactly what it's going to be doing, but it's going to be expanding the envelope of its operations. And for the broader picture of space exploration, of course, for the last several decades, we've been focused on what we call low Earth orbit, the International Space Station, for example, and the space shuttle. We were always around 250, 280 miles up off the surface of the Earth. So we're talking about orbital regimes that are higher. Of course, we have gone farther. The Apollo missions took humans to the moon, for example, so that went a lot higher. But, this is a big deal for the military because for this particular vehicle, it's going to be in an area that it's never explored before. So they're expanding the envelope of their capability.
Talk to us a little bit about this aspect of the mission that includes experimenting with seeds in space. Leroy, what is the significance of those kinds of experiments and how can they contribute to our understanding of space environments?
Sure. NASA has been flying actually space seed experiments for a number of years, both aboard space shuttles when we were flying those, and now currently aboard International Space Station. And so, most of the time, those were like student experiments. We would fly seeds into space, into that radiation environment. They could grow plants with control seeds on the ground and, compare the differences. So I believe, I don't know that this is a student experiment for the X-37B, but I believe it's up there mostly to kind of see what the effect of that higher radiation environment might have on those seeds when they are planted and, compared to controls that are here on the ground. So, in a very indirect way and non-conclusive way, it might help us understand a little bit about those, heightened radiation environments. But to make the leap from seeds to human is a pretty huge one.
All right. Well, fascinating stuff. Dr. Savik Ford and Leroy Chiao, thank you both for being here. Hopefully we can have both of you back when this actually does take off and the launch gets underway. Thank you. Don't go anywhere because we are just getting started. Still ahead, police are asking the public for help to identify 2 separate hit-and-run suspects. Plus, UPenn's president is resigning after anti-Semitism criticism stemming from her congressional testimony. Now the pressure is growing for Harvard's leader to do the same. And Rudy Giuliani is in court where a jury is deciding how much money he owes the election workers he defamed with baseless allegations. That's all just ahead, so stay tuned.
When I testify, you'll get the whole story, and it will be definitively clear that what I said was true.
Do you regret what you did to Ruby?
Of course I don't regret it. I told the truth.
Welcome back. Here are some of the stories, or the other headlines, rather, that we are watching tonight. Today, the U.S. Air Force found Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira acted alone in allegedly leaking classified documents. However, 15 Air Force personnel were disciplined after it was found his unit failed to take proper action when he was seeking out intelligence. He was indicted and pleaded not guilty to 6 federal counts of willful retention and transmission of national defense information. A U.S. Air Force pilot safely ejected from an F-16 fighter jet early this morning, crashing off the coast of South Korea. Officials say the jet experienced an in-flight emergency after taking off for a routine training flight. The cause is still under investigation. The pilot is reportedly awake and in stable condition. A person of interest is in police custody in the murder of Detroit synagogue leader Samantha Wool. This comes after police picked up a suspect last month but later released him. Police have not ruled Wool's death as an anti-Semitic hate crime. A hiker in California is recovering after he had to be rescued from under a 10,000-pound boulder. Officials say his leg was stuck for 7 hours before he was rescued on December 5th. Rescuers used a system of ropes and pulleys to shift the boulder. All of this in the middle of the night. The extent of his injuries are not yet known. And it's a Barbie world indeed. Barbie is leading the way at the Golden Globes with 9 nominations announced today. Oppenheimer follows behind with 8 nominations. And in the TV categories, HBO's Succession dominating with 9 nominations. The Golden Globes will air on January 7th. Former President Donald Trump's civil fraud trial was set to resume in New York, but last night, he announced on Truth Social that he would not be testifying today as originally planned. The former president is accused of inflating his assets in order to secure more favorable loans. The trial is set to start up again tomorrow. Meanwhile, in a separate trial, Trump's former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, was in federal court in Washington, D.C. This case will determine how much money he might have to pay 2 Georgia election workers he smeared during the 2020 election. Giuliani was already found liable for defamation in part because of comments like this.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shay Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
What was your mom actually handing you on that video?
A ginger mint.
Joining us now is NBC News legal analyst Angela Sinadella. Angela, let's start with the former president. How does his lack of testimony change the trial moving forward? And what do you expect to happen in the coming days?
So, Ellison, I actually think that his lawyers rejoiced when he decided not to testify. And that's because while he had almost nothing to gain from being on the stand, he had so much to lose. There is this gag order against him. If he went on the stand and possibly violated, he could face more fines, more penalties. Also, he is involved in multiple criminal trials. Anything that he would reveal on the stand could be used against him in those criminal trials. Also, he would have opened himself up to cross, and we know that is always risky. In civil trials, if you take the fifth, that can be used against you. So there were just so many risks with him getting on the stand. So his lawyers are probably happy he didn't. In terms of the coming days, we will see this trial wrap up, but we probably will not see any form of decision from the judge until January.
So you mentioned the gag order, seeing the former president post about his decision not to testify. He also seemed to criticize fairly directly the judge in this case. He wrote in part, quote, "The only fraud committed was by the highly partisan and out of control judge." Does that violate the gag order that judge had placed on the former president? He'd been so specific in saying, you can't talk about me, you can't talk about my staff. what does that post, that comment mean for the gag order?
Allison, it is such a fine line. And the judge made careful to say that the gag order really applied to his staff, but does not seem to apply to the judge himself. And that is because any defendant in any trial really has a First Amendment right to speak up when they feel that they are being biased against or when they feel that they are being prosecuted unfairly. So with his staff, it was a security issue. But when it tends to involve an elected or appointed official like this judge, there is much more leeway there for the First Amendment to apply.
Okay. Now let's talk about Rudy Giuliani before you let you go. He was already found liable for defamation, right? So what is at stake here, and what will we hear in the court? Will it be anything that we haven't heard? Is this more of just a formality to come to a conclusion on the financial terms of all of this?
Yes, that's right. But the impact is significant. And first of all, in terms of quantity, I mean, there are $40+ million at stake here in terms of even just the compensatory damages that could be on the table. So compensatory are damages that would be awarded to make the victims whole, whatever wrongs they experienced, to allow for that to make up, to compensate, but also almost an unlimited potential here for punitive damages. But when you look at why a judgment was entered against him in the first place, it's because he refused to comply, he refused to turn over documents that the plaintiffs requested. And you know why I think that is? It's because he has a criminal trial at stake. So anything he produces, says in this civil trial, could fully be used against him in the criminal trial in Georgia. So Rudy Giuliani is in this conundrum that is extremely unenviable at this time, Ellison.
All right, NBC's Angela Sinadella, thank you so much. We appreciate it, as always. Harvard University President Claudine Gay is coming under fire for her testimony during last week's congressional hearing on campus anti-Semitism. But hundreds of faculty members are now rushing to her defense. More than a quarter of the university's faculty have signed a letter to administrators urging them to resist what they call political pressure to remove her from her position. Harvard's governing body is currently in meetings to decide her fate. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
At Harvard University, hundreds of faculty are rallying behind the school's president, Dr. Claudine Gay.
I totally support Claudine Gay.
In the wake of last week's controversial hearing in Congress on anti-Semitism.
I personally don't think her actions merit her going.
Saturday, University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill resigned from her post. During the hearing, both presidents testified that calls for the genocide of Jews did not necessarily violate their campus rules.
It can be, depending on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign.
President Gay later apologizing, clarifying that calls for genocide were vile and have no place at Harvard. Now, a letter signed by more than 700 faculty members urges the university's top governing body to resist political pressures, including calls for the removal of President Gay. Is it fair to say that presidents at universities and colleges nationwide are dealing with the same issues and trying to answer the same questions?
Absolutely. These are issues that are boiling on all of our campuses. They provide a setting for intense debate over very divisive subjects. Sometimes it hits the guardrails.
The spike in anti-Semitism not just being felt on college campuses. In California, a couple in their 70s was attacked on their way to synagogue this weekend.
All of a sudden, I saw the guy hitting my husband with the belt and screaming, sorry, give me your earrings, Jew.
Her husband hit several times. The suspect is now charged with a hate crime. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Tomorrow, President Biden will host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. The visit to Washington, D.C. will be his third since the war in Ukraine began, and the focus will arguably be additional aid to help Ukraine fight Russia. But there's more things they can talk about as well. But look, this is such an important issue because right now Republicans are skeptical about the whopping $60 billion President Biden is pushing to give Ukraine in aid. NBC News White House correspondent Ali Rafa has more.
Ellison, President Zelensky returned to a very different Washington than the one he visited back in September, because this time the future of U.S. aid to his country directly hinges on the ability for this president and Republicans on Capitol Hill to come to some sort of compromise on immigration reform. And that is an issue so incredibly controversial and complicated that it's become a decades-long problem that hasn't been able to be solved by multiple administrations and sessions of Congress. So the president, Zelensky, made a personal plea to Congress during a speech he gave to military students and leaders earlier today. Listen here.
Let me be frank with you, friends. If there's anyone inspired by unresolved issues on Capitol Hill, it's just Putin and his sick clique. They see the dreams come true when they see the delays or some scandals.
President Zelensky receiving a standing ovation from that crowd, and that is no doubt the reception that he's hoping to get when he meets with House Speaker Mike Johnson, as well as senators on Capitol Hill, in addition to his meeting at the White House with President Biden. And he's going to no doubt seek assurances for not just this supplemental funding request that is included in this larger request that includes around $61 billion to go to Ukraine. He's also going to be seeking long-term assurances for continued U.S. aid to his country. That's something that the president has vowed to do, but it's a promise that's looking increasingly harder to keep as we continue to see support among Americans to be able to keep sending U.S. aid to Ukraine dwindle the longer that this war drags on. And so we expect President Zelensky to add that pressure to talk about how dire the situation is for his country as it continues its war with Russia, and make those personal face-to-face pleas with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. But at the end of the day, this all comes down to whether the president is able to make a deal with these Republican lawmakers, as at the heart of their argument, they want less people to be able to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. They want less people to be able to seek asylum there. Democrats, on the other hand, wanting migrants to be able to seek asylum more efficiently and more quickly, rather than cutting the numbers of people crossing the border. So those are obviously on two very different ends of the spectrum. The president has said he is willing to make compromises in order to get this funding package granted and sent to Ukraine. But what those compromises are and whether they are enough to appease those Republicans while also not alienating Democrats, that is still a huge question here. Another complicating factor in this whole situation is whether this is going to be able to get done in the next few days before Congress leaves on recess. So these are all things that no doubt President Zelensky is thinking about, that are weighing on him as he acknowledges that so many factors in this situation are completely beyond his control. Ellison.
NBC White House correspondent Ali Rafa, thank you. Coming up, LeBron James's son is back on the college court. Months after suffering cardiac arrest during a workout, we have those details. But first, you gotta see this. A dog caught in the rush of traffic. Drivers worked together to rescue a missing Chihuahua spotted running across the Staten Island Expressway this week. You see him on your screen there. Look, he's a little guy. Dashcam video from one of the drivers shows people trying to steer the dog out of the way of cars toward the HOV lane. Then they pulled over onto the side of the road to try and help rescue the poor pup. That Chihuahua ran under one of the cars before being secured in a bag and safely reunited with its owner. That was a close call, but we're glad he's all right. We will be right back after the break. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following. Police are calling it a murder-suicide. 4 people were shot and killed in northwest Las Vegas Valley this morning, including 3 children, all of them under the age of 14. Police say a 5th person who was shot is, quote, clinging to life. Major League Baseball's Shohei Ohtani has signed a 10-year, $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. It is believed to be the largest sports contract ever. It nearly doubles the $360 million record for a free agent set by the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge, last December. And LeBron James's son, Bronny James, makes his college debut as a USC player since suffering cardiac arrest during a workout back in July. James came on in the first half of USC's loss against Long Beach State last night with his dad right there courtside cheering him on. Despite limited practice, James finished with 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a blocked shot. All that in just 16 minutes. Tonight, Seattle police are searching for the suspects and 2 victims from separate hit and runs last month. The incidents were both recorded, and we do want to warn you, it may be disturbing to watch.
Hit this. Hit this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Police released those cell phone video clips along with surveillance video of the hit and runs. Both of these incidents happened on November 26th. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin joins us now with a closer look at these videos that police are hoping will finally help track down all of those who were involved. Dana?
Ellison, Seattle police say they are extremely concerned about these deliberate hit and runs where you can see they were captured on cell phone video showing a driver and what appears to be a passenger egging on that driver to hit pedestrians. In these videos, you can hear them laughing and talking about purposefully hitting these pedestrians. Investigators say that they were made aware of these videos in late November. They have not released exactly how they obtained the videos, but Seattle police detectives say that they've reviewed 911 calls, hospital admissions. They've tried to locate witnesses, but have been unable to locate the victims. That's why they're trying to get the message out. So take a look at these videos. In the first incident, they were able to locate surveillance video showing how this vehicle veered into the opposite lane to hit one of the victims, a woman, they tell us. Investigators say you can see in that video several people trying to help that victim. That victim was later picked up by another car and driven away. Investigators say that person never made it to the hospital. In the second incident, suspects targeted a person from behind that was walking in a bus lane. Investigators say that person flew over the hood of the vehicle and the car takes off. Investigators believe both of these incidents happened on November 26 around 1:50 in the morning, and based on the speed of impact, they believe these victims may have serious injuries. That's why they're asking for the public's help. I reached out to the police department. They tell me there's no indication that this is a prank. They are investigating this as an assault. Ellison?
Dana Griffin, thank you. Some more breaking news this hour. In Texas, the Supreme Court there, they have just overturned a lower court ruling that would have allowed a Dallas woman to get an abortion because of medical concerns. The ruling came down just a few hours after lawyers for 31-year-old Kate Cox announced she was going to leave the state to terminate her non-viable pregnancy. Cox sought an abortion when she learned the fetus she's carrying has a rare disorder and will likely not survive, and carrying it to full term could also prevent her from having another child. Mara, let's start with the legal twists and turns when it comes to this case. What is going on right now with Cox in particular in the state of Texas?
Well, Ellison, there have been changes literally every day when it comes to Cox's pregnancy. You'll remember it was big news when she was granted an exemption on Thursday to be able to have that abortion in Texas, and then turn around come Friday, the Attorney General issued an emergency stay, which meant that everything that was in motion for her to get that abortion was all of a sudden halted. And so that's why her attorneys came out today saying that she's going to have to leave the state and go across state lines from her where she lives to go and get this abortion. Her attorneys released a statement reading, "While we still hope that the court ultimately rejects the state's request and does so quickly, in this case we fear that justice delayed will be justice denied. We are talking about urgent medical care. Kate is already 20 weeks pregnant. This is why people should not need to beg for health care in a court of law." And now, at the end of the week last week, after the news that there was the exemption, Kate did an interview with NBC News saying that she thought that being forced to carry out her pregnancy and deal with all all of the complications was, quote, cruel. She really just wanted to get through this and heal, and she really wants to try for another baby, Ellison.
So, Mara, talk to us about what this means in the context of the rest of the United States. Texas is not the only state that has dramatically and severely limited access to abortion since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. What does this mean for other states, say Georgia, where they have similar, very restrictive abortion laws?
Right. There are a handful of states that have these medical exemptions, as they'll call it. But again, like you said, very narrow and very hard to get those exemptions. And so those states could be looking at Texas as a way to set a precedent, a way to maybe circumvent that exception for other people that might be challenging their near total abortion ban as well. And so I think that's something we might continue to see. But these lawsuits, this court action over abortion access is something that we're starting to see more and more of. Just this week as well, a woman in Kentucky filed a lawsuit in conjunction with Planned Parenthood saying that she doesn't want the government dictating what she can do with her body. She's 8 weeks pregnant and wishes to have an abortion and is pushing back against Kentucky's near total ban as well. And so I've been covering the abortion issue since before Roe v. Wade was overturned, and the flurry of legal action and pushback that we've seen in states in recent months as we're coming up on that 2024 election where abortion is going to be a key issue, I think is really telling as states continue to push back, continue to try to limit access for people seeking abortions, even though public opinion, the majority of Americans, support the right to an abortion.
NBC's Mara Barrett, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Still to come, Amazon contract workers are sharing horrific stories about the conditions they have dealt with. We're talking about even having their bathroom breaks monitored. That report is next, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. Big AI news. The European Union, they have agreed on the world's first laws to regulate artificial intelligence. There are still very few details on what exactly will make it into the eventual law. It appears, though, that big companies like OpenAI will face transparency requirements, though nothing will take effect until 2025, and that's at the very earliest. Argentina officially has a new president. Javier Milei was sworn in yesterday. The hard-right politician won by promising to slash government spending and dramatically transform the country's economic crisis. The government of Guyana will sit down for bilateral talks with Venezuela over an escalating beef regarding land. The dispute kicked off earlier this month when Venezuela's president claimed sovereignty over a part of Guyana after discovering massive amounts of oil. But Guyana, they were not backing down. Officials there, now it appears that both of these countries are at a point where they don't want interference from, quote, external actors, so it seems they're going to have a chat. And Prince Harry has been ordered to pay legal fees to a British newspaper publisher. The Daily Mail claimed in a report that Harry attempted to mislead the public. Last Friday, a judge said that article in the Daily Mail published last February reflected a, quote, honest opinion and was not libel. Now Harry will have to fork over about £50,000 or $60,000 in legal fees. And tonight, a new investigation from NBC News and our media partners. It reveals concerning allegations from migrant laborers working at Amazon in Saudi Arabia. They say companies that supply workers to Amazon took advantage of them, leaving them devastated and in debt. NBC News senior consumer investigative correspondent Vicky Nguyen has this report.
It's one of the biggest companies in the world with a market cap of $1.3 trillion. Right here. Battling American labor unions, the U.S. government in a massive antitrust lawsuit, and now NBC News is uncovering troublesome labor conditions across the globe. Life was hard for Momtaj Mansour in poverty-stricken rural Nepal, where his 16 family members were struggling to make ends meet. When he heard about a job at Amazon, he thought he was getting the chance of a lifetime.
I had a dream of earning money to help my family to move forward, to improve my family's situation.
A Nepalese recruiter assured him he'd be working directly for Amazon in a Gulf state, a sure bet for good pay and job security. But there was a catch. To secure the position, he had to pay the recruiter more than $2,000, an astronomical sum for his family. Still, the chance for an Amazon job was too good to pass up. But when he got to Saudi Arabia, He says he'd been duped, not an Amazon employee directly, but instead a worker for a Saudi firm that supplies labor to Amazon called Al Muteri.
They put us in a room like animals, 8 workers to a room.
The housing conditions dismal, he says. Water too salty to drink, and he itched if he bathed in it. He says he was moved to other housing, only to find it infested with insects. Mansour is one of 54 Nepalese workers interviewed for this report in partnership with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism. Surendra Kumar Lama, also devastated by his experience, says he wound up deeper in debt than before.
All my dreams have been shattered. I had to pay off the loans. How could I save money?
Nepalese journalist Pramod Acharya spoke with about 20 workers who were still in Saudi Arabia working for Amazon.
The workers seem very scared to talk. They all describe their situation and position as helpless there.
And on the floor of the vast Amazon warehouse in Riyadh, Mansour says the work was hard. On his feet 8 hours a day, bathroom breaks monitored. After 5 months of work, he'd grown thin and weak.
I would feel like I was being pierced with needles or walking barefoot on stones when I returned to my room. My whole body would ache.
The level of exploitation they then faced in Saudi Arabia means that many of them are highly likely to be victims of human trafficking.
Ella Knight of Amnesty International co-authored a report on deception in recruiting practices.
Amazon didn't take the action necessary at that time to prevent those abuses, and therefore workers have continued to suffer over several years.
In a statement to NBC News, Amazon said that providing safe, healthy, and fair working conditions is a requirement of doing business with Amazon in every country where we operate. And we are deeply concerned that some of our contract workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia were not treated with the standards we set forth and the dignity and respect they deserve. The company added its own investigation found labor violations, that it is implementing stronger controls to ensure similar incidents do not occur, and that it is compensating workers who paid recruiting fees to the companies supplying labor. For Mansour, his troubles only worsened after he was suddenly told by text he was laid off.
They were not allowing us to return home. I told them it would be better if you kill us instead of giving us so much pain. Kill us or send us home.
The labor supply firm Al Muteri did not respond to repeated requests for comment. The only way to escape, Mansour says, was to pay an exit fee of more than $1,300.
My family's financial situation is devastating now. I lost everything going there, including my health. My body suffered a lot at Amazon.
Now back in Nepal, Mansour, filled with regret and debt, feels he needs to look abroad for other opportunities, hoping he doesn't get caught in the same cycle once again. Vicky Nguyen, NBC News.
Well, he has done something yet again to outrage people. Any guesses? Elon Musk. He just reactivated conspiracy theorist Alex Jones's X account after a 5-year ban. All this after Musk vowed he'd never let him back. Jake Ward is here in studio. He will explain exactly what's going on. Stay tuned. Musk's overhaul of the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, now X, continues with a move that is not landing well with some, especially his advertisers. Elon Musk has reinstated some suspended users over his time at the helm of X, and that includes Donald Trump, Kanye West, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Several courts have found Jones responsible for defaming the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre and forced him to pay over $1 billion to victims' families. Over the weekend, Alex Jones thanked Elon on an X Spaces stream and had this to say about the CEO.
Elon Musk's courage, and it's true, I'm saying, has broken the back of the globalists. They'll never be able to turn this around again unless they have a nuclear war. Elon Musk has broken their back.
Well, I guess some people are afraid to die, but I am not.
NBC News tech correspondent Jake Ward is with me on set to talk more about this. Jake, let's remind viewers what Elon Musk had to say about Alex Jones' reinstatement to the platform just last year. He said this, quote, "My firstborn child died in my arms. I felt his last heartbeat. I have no mercy for anyone who would use the deaths of children for gain, politics, or fame. What changed here?
You know, it is not at all clear, right? I mean, this couldn't have been more insensitively timed, right? We're coming up on the anniversary of the Sandy Hook massacre that, of course, set off that billion-dollar judgment against Alex Jones, got him deplatformed from everybody. And so why on earth would he have brought him back at this time? I mean, you know, the folks I talked to who are close to Elon Musk say it is all about attention and that it seems to just be that attention is it. But, you know, this guy is, in theory, a free speech absolutist, but he has also himself pulled off of X folks whose work he doesn't like. You know, a few people talking about software and coding in ways he doesn't like. The person who followed his private jet around. You know, those people have all gotten pulled off. And now here comes Alex Jones back again, along with you, as you mentioned, Kanye West and Donald Trump. And so what is the game plan here? It is just not clear yet, Allison.
Let's talk about advertisers, because there was that interview that we've talked about in the past that I think everyone remembers, but we'll play a clip of it and then we'll talk after.
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
I do watch some of Musk's behavior and I think, am I an idiot? And I'm not a CEO. Maybe I don't know how to run a business, but none of this seems like things that would help with advertisers on a platform and a business that is funded largely by that exact revenue stream.
Right, this is the thing, right? Like, remember when CEOs were boring and that was sort of the whole strategy, like be as dull as you can? That is not the case, right? In that clip, he had just come from a tour in Israel with Netanyahu, in which he had promised to withhold Starlink connections to Gazans, and seemingly in exchange for then getting kind of a pat on the back from Netanyahu. I mean, just the weirdest public stuff. And, you know, when you look at the damage he has done financially, it's really pretty astounding. I mean, if you look back at it, October 2022, that's when he closed the deal for Twitter at the time. It was worth $44 billion. You know, now, just a year later, it's worth $19 billion, according to internal stock options that he is offering employees here. And so, you know, the question just becomes, I think, for me, like, where is the bottom of this? And one bottom we should be watching for is the debt that banks are holding for Elon Musk. He had to borrow about $13 billion from banks in order to fund his acquisition. That is owed to 7 banks, including Barclays, Bank of America, you know, and these are banks that typically would then turn right around and hand that debt to Wall Street, but nobody is buying Ellison. So these are banks that are sitting with this on their books, which is the worst thing. They hate that, and regulators hate that too. So as pressure mounts on the banks, maybe that's the one place, this $13 billion debt, that could provide some sort of bottom to this situation, because otherwise I just can't find one.
Why do you think this has become such a cultural moment flashpoint? Everybody seems to pay attention to what Elon Musk does. Yeah. Advertisers have a very different reaction to the things that he does versus his devoted fans online.
Sure.
What are kind of the implications to this for you? Where does it go from here, and what does this say about us that we're all so obsessed with this?
I know. Well, I mean, certainly, you know, it is such a departure from the conventional CEO playbook, which was as boring as, you know, professional athletes, right? It was just, you're just trained to be boring, you know, and that is certainly the departure that I think draws all of our attention. But you also have to remember that once upon a time, right, this was a guy who made his name making products and selling products through his personal brand, right? Being an EV maker through Tesla, being a rocket maker through SpaceX, attracting attention to that through what he had to say on social media was a big part of it. And this is now him in charge of the platform. I mean, you know, one stat that I was looking at was, you know, the number of followers he's gained since acquiring it. So $44 billion on October 2022. At that point, he had 80 million followers. He's lost more than $20 billion worth of value, but he's gained twice the followers. Maybe his logic, if we're looking for logic here, maybe this is it, is that somehow that personal brand will help pull together his other companies, and that Twitter is just kind of his way of doing that. But it really does seem like he's on course to run it into the ground in the process, Allison.
All right. Jake Ward, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And that does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.